Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation we're going to see how we go about setting up predefined options inside of DHCP. There will be times when you're going to want to set up a particular scope option, define a class, or define a vendor, or some other option that's not available inside of the default options for your scope. So let's take a look at that real quick. So if we expand our scope and we go down here to the scope options, you'll see that we have some of those already listed over here inside of the right window pane. But if I right click on here and I go to configure options, these are the default options that I can configure, and they only go up to 121. But there are plenty of other options that we can define up here inside of DHCP, and that's what we're going to show you how to do in this short video presentation. So one of the more popular options that we have is the option for covering voice over IP phones. VoIP is not listed under the default options, but we can add it as a class defined or predefined option. And we're going to see how we do that now. So to begin this process, we're going to go up here to the top of our IP4 version scope, and we're going to right click, and we're going to select from the context menu Set Predefined Options. Inside of our predefined options, we're just going to click on the Add button. You can name your predefined option here as anything you want, but for this demonstration, since this is going to be for IP phones, let's call it that. And we'll change the data type from byte to string. Now we have to add in the code for this option. The code for this option is 156, and you will recall that the options that we have for the defaults ends at 121. So we're going to add a new predefined option, and it's already been assigned the code of 156, and this is for IP phones. You don't need to add a description, that's optional, so go ahead and click OK. So the next thing we have to do is bring up our notepad, and we have to configure the string that we're going to be using. To do this, I'm just going to hold down the Windows key, type in R, and I'm going to type in notepad.exe. I'll hit enter. And here's my notepad. So now the next thing we have to do is configure this string data so that we know how to input it into this string value. Now we know that our phone server has an IP address of 192.168.145.50. Now this is my phone server. Your IP address for your phone server will differ. Now in most cases on our switch we would have a VLAN set aside just for our voice over IP phones. In this case, our VLAN is number 50. So the VLAN ID that I'm using for my VoIP phones is 50. Now, if you're using the default VLAN for your entire network, then you change that to VLAN ID 1. Now, the next thing we have to do is enable layer 2 tagging. So after this string here, I'm just going to type in on. So this is all going to be put together into a single string, and we're going to see how we do that next. So when we put all this information together into the correct string, this is what it's going to look like. So over on my phone server, I'm running FTP that the IP phones are going to use to pull down their configuration information for DHCP. Now we see that I have the 192.168.145.50 address in place with a comma. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is turn on layer 2 tagging. Now I do this by using the number 1. 1 is binary for on. 0 is off. The next thing we have to do is configure the VLAN ID. And there it is. VLAN ID equals 50. I'm now just going to go ahead and copy this information and go over here to my string and right click, and I'm going to paste. And there it is. Once you confirm that all your information for this string is correct, just go ahead and click OK. Now that we have this option added into our default options, we can go to our scope options, right click, and select configure options. And now if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see that you have option 156 IP phones listed. Go ahead and check that box. Go ahead and click on apply, say OK, and now underneath your options you see that you have option 156 IP phones listed. And so now when our IP phones come up on the network and they request an IP address from our DHCP server, They'll get all the information they need, and they'll be told where to go and to find their configuration and whatever else information they need to be able to operate correctly. Now, the last option you want to put in to help your IP phones is the time server. So just right click on options. Let's go to configure options. And from here, we're just going to select the box for time server. And here you just put in the IP address for your domain controller or whatever time server you're using. Click on the add button and click OK. Now, by default, your primary domain controller, which is the PDC operations master, is going to be your time server. And so that concludes the short video presentation on how we go about configuring a predefined option up inside of our DHCP server. So if you have any questions or concerns about any of the information that was provided for you in this short video presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact your instructors, and I'll see you in my next video.